things over last week. I gave you guys my thoughts on Reacher Season 3, the first few episodes. We talked about Alan Ritchson and his weird, fight with Matt Gaetz, of all people. And people started having their conversations back and forth about woke Alan Ritchson, which is now transmogrified into the woke Reacher meme, which I really, really love, because the way I see it is there's two types of people on the internet. There's the ones who actually watch the stuff, and then there's the people who are kind of just there to consume the content. So a lot of these memes actually ended up tricking a lot of people who aren't watching the show, thinking they're things that were actually said in Reacher Season 3. And it all kind of comes back to the fact that Alan Ritchson is, of course, he's a shitlib.
He's woke in real life.
Yes, he is.
So that's. I think
this one from Oilfield Rando is the one that actually set everything off. It says, "What are you gonna do, Reacher? I'm gonna show them what happens when you stop funding gender-affirming care in Guatemala." The thing is you can actually imagine Alan Ritchson saying that.
That's the thing with him being a woke tough guy. Mm-hmm. If he just gets into a spat on Twitter with Matt Gaetz, I don't know who to side with. Like, he could actually just smack Matt Gaetz down to the floor. Yep. So, who's cooler?
It's I think that neither of them are cool.
The tough woke
politicians by nature are not cool. And thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's funny because he goes against every stereotype of woke people.
I like this one. I think I don't think that's necessarily true. I know that on its face it feels that way, but it's not like the Marvel dudes weren't known for being.
Oh, Chris Evans especially.
But he's tiny now. Did you see? If you didn't watch him in Red 1, he's like half the size he was when he was in Captain America.
Sure, but still traditionally masculine, attractive guy. And white straight male who happens to be super woke.
It's just Reacher, and my pronouns are she, her. I'd appreciate it if you would stop misgendering me.
Stop objectifying me. I don't have to be shirtless in all of these scenes.
I would love to if you would actually ever say it. See, the thing is, no man that's actually in shape complains about that.
Yeah,
when they do that.
I don't see Alan Ritchson complaining about being over-sexualized.
Well, neither did Stephen Amell, who was pretty much always shirtless in Arrow in the earlier seasons. Excuse me, did you just deny climate change?
I would be like, no, sir. Please don't kill me.
God, this was my favorite. It says, yeah, that's right, bud. We're doing a fucking land acknowledgement right now.
Wait, are these like adapting from the lines that you've heard in the show? Or
they're
just
not taken from the show.
How is this season like? Is it woke in any way, shape, or form?
No.
In the actual content?
I refuse to make that acknowledgement because I don't like. People use that word so subjectively that I will not. Somebody's going to find some way to say that it is. I don't think that it is.
What would
one of the things that I thought was really funny is like people were watching like the first 10 minutes of the show and then talking about how bad it is because he kept making mistakes. But what they don't realize if they'd watched like 5 more minutes, it's actually part of a setup because he's going undercover. So everything was planned. But people watched the first 10 minutes and then just started talking, which made them look very, very stupid. But no, like nothing in that context, or at the very least, if there's something that you would consider to be that word, woke, there's nothing that I saw that was in any way a detractor from how good the story is so far going forward. Okay. Again, like I almost refuse to ever because that's one of those terms that the argument never gets off the ground because people just sit there and argue about what it means. Like people were like somebody I mentioned yesterday, I said I made a post about how the show High Potential ended the season with higher ratings than it started. And I said, that's freaking fantastic. Let's go season 2 and beyond. And somebody says, given what the trailer looked like, I doubt it. And I was like, and I linked to the evidence and the info. And they said it just seemed kind of woke. I said, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean in the context of a trailer for a TV show? Because I know for a fact there aren't any lines that come off that way.
Was it about diversity that seemed forced?
In that case, how can you call it forced if it's like a new property and the characters are original? It's I guess you could say that because I think the show is based on like a French TV show, so maybe because all the actors aren't French, it's somehow well. But I'm saying, if you're going with an original property and all of them are original first time casting, you can't really make that argument. Which is why people always tell you to make new stuff, because that way, when no matter who you cast, you can complain about the actor themselves, but you can't complain that they were put there for that reason.
We have a 20 from DJ Ango. Happy Monday, Mary and Brett. Yesterday was my birthday and want to share my birthday money with my favorite background noise. You guys are amazing. And Mary, don't listen to the haters in the Timcast chat. You keep doing you.
Correct.
Well, thank you. I will keep doing me, but I still want my haters to like me.
Says, what will you do about this, Reacher? I'm going to show them what happens to people who use the wrong pronouns. It says, give the Mexicans their Gulf back, fascist pig.
This is like literally something I picture Alan Ritchson angrily tweeting.
See, and here's the thing, guys, is like people were looking at these quotes and they're like, well, I'm not watching season 3 now, thinking that they were actually saying that.
This is exactly what happened with the Yellowstone memes of Kevin Costner and that one still from the show.
Yeah.
Where basically people were arguing Taylor Sheridan was using Yellowstone to subtly indoctrinate a largely conservative, largely boomer audience that was watching his show.
Okay.
And it's basically a TV show completely rife with woke ideology, but wrapped in the aesthetic of something that appeals to conservatives.
I mean,
and it's intended that way to reach that specific audience in order to shift their worldview.
I mean, I don't know if I buy that his whole idea is like, I'm going to get a bunch of people to start thinking differently.
You mean Taylor Sheridan?
Yes, Taylor Sheridan. From what I understand, the Reacher books were, they're calling them neoliberal propaganda. Look, I don't know. I can't speak to it. I know that I like the movies and I know that I like Taylor Sheridan's work, but most of the reason for that is he has a fairly even-handed conversation back and forth about whatever it is they're talking about. Whereas when you think of the type of propaganda that most people are talking about, it's stuff that bashes you over the head with some type of ideology. And somebody being willing to hear both sides of the argument is a very, very compelling thing in the year 2025. This show doesn't even do any of that.
Yeah, no.
This show isn't even entertaining any of those ideas. There's no convoluted concepts other than maybe rich people can be evil. Sometimes fine. And even this in season 3, they've introduced what's the guy's name? Beck. Like at the very least, like he seems like a more layered character than the bad guys in season 1 and 2, meaning that like he's clearly caught up in this conspiracy, answering to somebody else, but he loves his son, at least from what I've seen in episodes 1 through 3. I haven't read the book, which makes him a more nuanced character than the bad guys were in seasons 1 and 2, who were just generic bad guys who had money.
I'm also okay with bad guys just being generic bad guys.
I am too. I love it.
They don't need to have a backstory.
Look, I don't want a tragic backstory, because these days when people give tragic backstories to bad guys, it's almost to justify their actions, because most of them are relativists who don't actually believe in any form of good and evil. Right? Yeah. So I look at all this stuff, and this is all, of course, bolstered by the fact that Alan Ritchson does have that reputation now. And I said press X to doubt that it's going to kill the viewership on this. I think for a show like this to be as successful as it got to be, it's reaching people that aren't sitting on Twitter worrying about what Alan Ritchson says about politics.
I could be wrong in saying this, but Alan Ritchson is still relatively a nobody in Hollywood. He's not a household name by any stretch. His show might be at this point, and that maybe speaks for itself. I saw this
I would disagree
tweet
with that.
Defending him from a woke perspective. Many MAGA guys hate Alan Ritchson because he is all of their masculine fantasies, is a devout Christian who runs his own faith-based YouTube channel, is married with children and successful, and basically he is stone cold proof that you can do all of those things and still be broadly liked. Now, the deceptive part is at the end there, he's stone cold proof that you can do all of those things and still be ideologically leftist,
It's-
not be liked. But to
Hating
them,
Trump is,
their political views are synonymous with an attempt to be liked.
Yeah. Hating Trump is also going to put him in that camp
Yes.
anyways, because he
Yes.
dislikes Donald Trump, which means he dislikes Republicans, not understanding that most of the people that like Trump don't like Republicans these days either. But that's a nuanced political discussion that, you know, for all his faults and successes, I'm not going to expect him to understand that. Like that's the terminally online political take of somebody who pays attention to this stuff all the time. He's married, he's got kids, he's got his beliefs, he's entitled to those beliefs. He, for the most part, other than when he talks about politics, seems like a very likable person. I do think he is a household name now. Being in a Guy Ritchie movie, then doing Fast and the Furious franchise to the point where he's not just in one, but he's now going to be in two. At the very least, he's getting there, and he's using this kind of in the same way, like the way I kind of see him in the same light as like John Krasinski after The Office. Like he's trying to elevate himself to the next level in his career, which is fine. And his politics are not going to prevent him from getting work. And say what they want to say, I don't believe his politics are going to kill his movies, because for the most part, normal people don't pay attention to what actors say. They just go see stuff that somebody that looks good.
It could be an easier path for Alan Ritchson to reach that next level of fame and success if he could do an interview without spouting off.
If he could adopt the Tom Cruise method of
or
things,
the Glenn Powell
or
method.
the Glenn Powell method of things, that would elevate his stature even more.
He could learn a thing or two.
But the reason, I still maintain that the reason Glenn Powell is as successful as he is now is not just because of his attitude in interviews, but he's worked very hard to get into producing, not just acting, and he's picking roles that are very, very unique. Not engaging in superhero fare for the most part, and seeming to pick unique stuff that speaks to his talent or what he's good at, and he's doing very, very well. Look, there's room up there for all of them for the most part. I just think it's funny because the problem with it is, guys, is like Hollywood has become so beyond parody that when they see stuff like this, they 100% believe that it could have been said.
I mean,
by
if
somebody.
some of these, if you believe that this was actually in Reacher, you're just you have the anti-woke mind virus.
It's just
if you think there are land acknowledgements in Reacher.
And the thing is, guys, it's like, look, I have this thing that I talk about where my hackles are up the first few episodes of any show, where it's like, it's very easy to lose me in that first 40 to 80 minutes of a show, because I'm looking for the garbage. I'm looking for it to start popping up somewhere.
All the time. Yeah. I'm looking for the garbage.
when I started watching High Potential, it was like that for like the first 2 episodes. But after that, it actually makes it easier. Once you get past that and you relax into the vibe of the show, then I binged almost the whole thing all at once because the season wasn't done yet. But if it starts to show up, I'll definitely catch it. But it makes it hard to enjoy those first few episodes because you're like looking for anything that's going to tell me this is a waste of my time. I don't need to watch.
Because you haven't been endeared to the characters yet, and maybe if you already were, you'd be able to stick with it.
Yeah. Like, even with that show, I talked about how, like, it would have been great if in the show, her first husband went missing years ago and she's looking for him. That's the overarching story that they pay lip service to every few episodes. And she's not married to her, the father of her other 2 children. And I was like, what if they, like, it'd be great. What if they were still married? But they can't really do that because they're going to bring the other guy back into the story. Like, there was reasons why they didn't do that, but it would have been great to me. I was like, well, what if she actually has because they have a good relationship, but they're not like a couple anymore. I'm like, what if he was like not just a babysitter for his kids and kind of deferring to her at every. You could call that part of it maybe a little bit. He's a little bit Mr. Manny.
Well, there are aspects like that I wouldn't necessarily call woke, because we're not talking about like gender ideology. We're not talking about, whites are the oppressors and systemic racism. We're not doing a bunch of buzzwords, but you see things that are inserted into storylines that I guess you could technically say reflect the personal lives of Americans today. There's a lot of like broken marriages, broken families, but they do it just because they don't want to show a wholesome family unit in any piece of entertainment because they don't want to show an intact marriage.
Most of the time where I see this type of stuff be a problem in the types of procedurals that I watch, it's where they put a woman into a role that would normally be done by a dude, and she's half his size and the guy's a whining baby. And it's just not in line with the way reality actually is.
The start of that, here's why I wasn't allowed to watch Kim Possible. Do you remember Kim Possible?
I didn't watch it.
It was like definitely after your time, and I was watching Disney Channel at the time that Kim Possible was airing, and I wasn't allowed to watch it because it is the beginning of this feminist messaging in entertainment, but especially for kids, where all of the men are hopeless, stupid oafs who need women to come to their rescue. And that's why Kim Possible's sidekick, her friend Ron, is literally named Ron Stoppable. She's Kim Possible and he's Ron Stoppable because he messes everything up and he's stupid.
Yeah.
And that's just like, you know, the stupid husband trope.
Yeah.
That's like Homer Simpson, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's impossible to escape that. I wouldn't even call it woke. It's like something more sinister than that.
It's really funny because I've got so every time me and Olivia finish a show, I start my search to find her something new to try and get her to watch. And we started watching Blue Bloods, which is about the Reagan family. And granted, I only watch it up to season 9, but in it, for the most part,
I mean, it's pretty far in.
It's like they just finished as like 14 seasons, and now it's getting a spin-off.
Oh my
like
goodness.
with the main character from the original Blue Bloods is getting a spin-off in another town. Like they're moving Danny Reagan to Boston. Mark Wahlberg's brother will never stop working. But the point of the show is like all the men are competent at their jobs, but only one of them is married. And he's actually a good example of like, he's a good father. And the tropes in the show about the problems in the relationship are very, very believable as problems that any wife or family would have with a husband who works in law enforcement and is gone a lot and faces a lot of life-threatening situations. Like it rings true. For the most part. And you don't see a lot of that these days in those types of shows. They tend to want to subvert expectations. But if you want to subvert expectations now, the only way to subvert expectations is to not subvert them.
Yeah.
It is. Like if you do shows now and there's like a husband who's like going to work at his masculine job and the wife's home with the kids, you would be like, when was this made?
We got to introduce conflict somewhere, but maybe it shouldn't be familial. Once in a while.
Look, I love the idea of like the family life being good. Like that's what Peter Burke was in White Collar.
Pose a threat to the family. They did that in A Quiet Place.
Peter Burke in White Collar is like, he's got his home life is good. Him and his wife are good. She's got a good job. He's got a good job. She expects him when things go wrong. He's expected to take care of things, and he does. He's seen as competent, and those things it's like they don't know where to introduce the conflict now. But
yeah.
Maybe perhaps we're seeing a vibe shift there, as we said. Maybe competent men, but other than Reacher, will be seen.
Maybe Reacher is going to get married.
No. That's the other thing they were complaining about is he has a different love interest in every season. They're saying that's problematic because he's.
That's why they can't do Bond now.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.